what we do here is go back.
Ladies and gentlemen, lovely viewers, welcome to our much anticipated Inspire event, our first for 2021. I'm your host, Grace Livendau, and thank you so much for tuning in. Now, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, our internal platform, or joining us as an in-studio audience, thank you for tuning in, and you're welcome once again. Make sure to like, comment, share, tag a friend, and get inspired. Now, our Inspire session for this morning is titled Adapting to the New Post-COVID-19 Era. We are also very aware that during these times, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a lot of shaking in the world, destabilizing our careers and our companies. And the road to recovery seems like a far-fetched idea, and many desire to return to normal. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have three speakers in studio today, and joining us is Mr. Gys Joubert. We also have Nangula Shejavali, as well as Sam Shivute. Now, here at Capricorn Group, we know that positive change happens when the correct elements are brought together to create positive change. That is why we are connecting you with the right movers and shakers who can shed light on how and what adaptation looks like. Together, we would like to take you on a journey to consider how to restructure, refocus, and possibly reinvent yourself and your company during a time of difficulty and its aftermath. I introduce to you three influencers, as I mentioned before. Speaking first is Mr. Gys Joubert, Managing Director of Gondwana, Namibia, one of the country's leading hospitality groups. He also has over 10 years of background in the banking industry and legal field and has extensive knowledge in commercial law. He describes himself as an idealist with a robust moral code. His overarching vision not only applies to the in-house brand, but extends far beyond Gondwana Collection Namibia to the country and all her people. Now, our second speaker is Nangula Shejavali, co-founder and principal development consultant at Leading Edge, a boutique management consultancy focused on sustainable development and the institutional force behind followherlead.org. There, Nangula centers her work on providing advice, project management support, research on creative and strategic development, communications, marketing, media, and public policy, while also exercising her passions in good governance, gender equality, youth, and national development. Our third speaker, Sam Shivute, a Namibian motivational speaker, transformational coach, strategic business and leadership consultant, and executive coach. Now, he is one of the country's most sought-after motivational speakers, and he has made it a mission to inspire Namibians to tap into their hidden potential and become the best possible versions of themselves. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I introduce to you on this Inspire stage in this particular order, Gys Joubert, Nangula Shejavali, and Sam Shivute. After this break, they'll be joining us. Enjoy.
Journeying together through life's precious milestones. No matter what, we are here with you every single step of the way, because yours is a relationship worth banking on. Bank Windhoek, a member of Capricorn Group.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for having me. Like Grace said, I'm Gys and I'm from Gondwana. So when I was invited to join the session this morning, under the theme of adapting to the new post-COVID era, it inevitably took me on a journey of reflection over the past 12 months and everything that we've gone through. And let me tell you, when your industry disappears overnight, and in fact, tourism was outlawed for a large part of 2020 and for the bulk of our planet, actually. Then the layers get stripped away pretty quickly. The noise and the niceties disappear, and one is confronted with some serious questions. What is truly important? Who are we? What are we? Who am I? And what is all this for? You free fall into the depths of purpose. And you pretty soon realize that no amount of money is enough for this journey. External motivation is not enough. So what kept us going was a higher purpose. A purpose to keep Gondwana intact, and every single employee at Gondwana intact. Our why became our obsession. And like Nietzsche said, he who has a why to live can be almost anyhow. Tourism was no more. 1,100 employees, tourism employees, had to change. We internally had the saying where we said we changed into 1,100 artists because we had to reconsider, we had to recreate, and to look at the world of how we add value. In his book, Alive at Work, the writer Daniel Cable introduces us to the seeking system. It is a physical part of your brain. When activated, it prompts you to explore, to seek, to follow your urges. Historically, foraging for food, you are creative, you have wide peripheral vision. Your seeking system produces dopamine, or like people call it, the enthusiasm maker. This is neuroscience, this is biology, this is not a theory. Your seeking system makes you happier and more creative. Life is good. You are a better creative problem solver. You are actually physically healthier. So how is this system prompted in today's world? That question of how can I be the best version of myself? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What are my unique gifts and talents that I can offer to the universe? That feeling of meaning and purpose. Freedom to create in a safe environment. That feeling of being alive. Now, the opposite of the seeking system is survival mode. It's tunnel vision. It's disengagement. You cannot explore your environment. You're not allowed to try new things. Not allowed to think for yourself. You simply comply with instructions. You do not stick your neck out. You focus on survival. I'm asking myself, what are the modern day corporate structures and rules and policies telling our people in terms of going into this creative mode? How many of these restrictions are simply thinly veiled attempts at control and command in an ever increasingly complicated world? Friends, we are fooling ourselves. Life will not follow our structures and policies and risk plans. The only thing that can deal with life as it happens on the ground is people who are free. I want to say that again. The only thing that can deal with life as it happens on the ground is people who are free. Human beings who are empowered, confident, and safe. No one deals better with a crisis than an employee who loves their work and who in turn is loved at work. Personally, I believe there's a very strong connection between the seeking system and the human soul. That intrinsic motivation, that sense of purpose, attaching your personal purpose to a collective and a higher purpose, that sense of being alive. At Gondwana, we try to create and offer an environment that is conducive to the human soul. Yes, you bring your complete, unpolished, authentic, true self to work. With all your fears and insecurities, with your heartaches, with your hopes and your dreams. Bring your full, messy, complicated self to work. Be yourself. Nowadays, we talk a lot about technology and digitalization. Also at Gondwana, it's a focus point for us. But someone said the other day something that I found very powerful. They said everything that can be digitalized will be digitalized in the next few years. Everything else will be really valuable. Human interaction, basic humanity. If this crisis has taught me anything, it is the pivotal importance of truly engaged, empowered, trusted, and loved employees. At Gondwana, and surely, we cannot still think that we can control this complicated world through more structures and more rules and more policies. I reckon that if after this crisis you are introducing more constraints instead of less, if you are continuing with a system of control and command, you are actively destroying the future of your business, and you are making it less crisis-proof. At Gondwana, I'm not in control. Yes, as the CEO, the buck stops here and the responsibility lies with me. But I'm not naive for one moment to think that I'm in control. I am not the manager of a business. I am a leader of people. To me, work, Gondwana, is where I can be completely me. And believe me, in my case, that's not always pretty. Work is home. Work is safety. Work is love. My wife and my kids, my lovely family, they provide my psychological safety, my cave where I can go and hide away. But when I go to work, Gondwana also provides a psychological safety. And yes, through this pandemic, the suffering is real. The fear is real. The stress is real. But we suffer, and we fear, and we stress together. It is so much bigger than the individual. At Gondwana, we do not invest in our employees to make them better employees. No, we invest in our people to make them better human beings. We take them on a journeys of self-exploration and self-discovery to find that best version of the unique self. Invest in your people. Empower your people. Give your people freedom. Trust your people. And love your people. From the perspective of the employees, make sure you grab every single opportunity. Be a self-starter. We use this concept a lot at Gondwana where we talk about, a self-starter is that person who gets up in the morning and say, what can I try differently today? What can I do better than I did yesterday? The opposite of a self-starter is just the people who come along for the ride. But the future belongs to the self-starters. And remember, as an employee, your employer owes you nothing. Life owes you nothing. The worst that you can do is to become a victim, a willing victim. A victim, in my mind, is just someone who willingly cuts off their own feet and then complain that they cannot run. I believe in the past decade or two, we've been prompted a few times through global crises, to reconsider the path that we have chosen as humanity. I believe we have largely ignored those prompts. Now, we've been jolted. Our world has been turned upside down. We cannot waste this crisis. If you love your children, you cannot ignore inequality. If you love your children, you cannot ignore what we are doing to our planet, to our home, our only home. It is time. It is time to rethink, reconsider, reassess, refocus, reinvent, but not to restructure, to destructure. It is a horrible, horrible crisis, this COVID-19 global pandemic. but it has offered us a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. Let's use it. I thank you.
Narwala Bofi, Narwala Anto, Rishabila Bandano, summer days, summer nights. Ubala Hala Coronas the world, Hagukumer and the Bebe Saver, get la Magaleko, Lego, Leo. Agalama Tokutala Tap Table Papa Natre.
Gate papa mnati. Sha.
Arini.
Sure. Talakayone. It's too easy.
Enjoy the pleasures of secure and easy payments with a new contactless card from Bank Gaborone. It's as easy as tap and go. Visit a Bank Gaborone branch near you today and trade in your old card for the new Tap and Go card. Be a part of the tribe that taps. Tala Tap Tap. Free to be, free to do more. Bank Gaborone, a member of Capricorn Group.
Good morning. There is a saying that there are two certainties in life, change and death. COVID-19 has brought these two things into stark reality, reminding us not only that life is fragile and short, but also that things can't and shouldn't stay the same. From the losses that we've borne, to shifting our lives online, to having our movements restricted in order to protect ourselves and others, COVID-19 has really rattled our realities in significant ways. It has made us sit with uncomfortable emotions in uncomfortable situations and made us question realities which we shouldn't, in fact, be comfortable with. What has been termed the new normal doesn't look so exciting right now. By now, it's been just over a year since COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic, and the novelty of the new normal has somewhat worn off, although we're not completely through the crisis. While it's important that we sanitize, that we social distance, that we mask up to protect one another and ourselves, there is nothing comfortable and not so much normal about this current reality. It feels horrible to lose a loved one and not be able to comfort someone or to be comforted by those that you love because of gathering restrictions. It is mentally destabilizing to have to go out and not know if you'll catch the virus and how your own body might react to it. So the fear is real for everyone. It's hard to be unable to see someone smile behind a mask or to see what that expression is. To have to use your elbow to greet or to have to rush home before curfew. And in fact, the economic impact has also just been a nightmare. And these are some things I'll touch on. As my friend Tanya recently said, in no uncertain term, the new normal sucks. And data shows that it especially sucks for women. While the COVID pandemic has definitely impacted everybody's lives, men and women, women have especially been impacted and have had to deal with the brunt of the effect. In fact, some have referred to previous recessions as man-cessions because previously men's roles were often impacted worse. Currently, the COVID pandemic or the crisis around the COVID pandemic is being referred to as a she-cession because women are impacted where they're most prevalent, in retail, in health, in education, and in the hospitality sectors, where Gondwana rests in terms of tourism. So in all of these sectors, women far outnumber men. On a global level, research has also shown that women face added economic vulnerabilities because they operate more in the informal sector. They face heightened unpaid care and domestic work burdens, currently at about 3 times that of men. And we can see this in the stay-at-home restrictions, for example, or working from home, where in addition to having to work from home, you've had your kids had to stay at home and juggling these burdens, often that being relegated to the role of women, and single women especially having to deal with that brunt. Women have also faced reduced access to sexual and reproductive health facilities or resources, as these are being diverted for COVID emergencies, and supply chains have been disrupted also. And critically, women have also faced increased levels of gender-based violence as lockdowns have trapped victims with their abusers or have increased economic dependencies of victims on their abusers and also disrupted support services. So the data is really disconcerting, but it's also important that we recognize these troubling issues because many of them are not necessarily new. We've seen women have to deal with the brunt of unpaid work already and with gender-based violence and so forth. So especially as we examine the certainty of change, it's important that we look at creating a better normal. The new normal idea is used often, but let's think around creating a better normal for boys and girls, for women and men, for our country and for the world at large. My work over the past several years as a policy researcher and as a development consultant has brought me back to the theme of gender equality and women's empowerment over and over again. And I'm convinced that when we problem solve for women, we create solutions for everyone. It's a little in line with that saying that when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. There is much more to explore, both positive and negative, when looking at the gendered impact of COVID-19. But in the few minutes that I have left, I just want to while taking stock of the realities of COVID-19, I'd like to explore a little bit about what it means to create a better normal for everyone, using some of the lessons that we've learned from women who have responded resiliently. I want to highlight 3 lessons for a better normal centered on voice, number 1, so looking at diverse voices, 2, buying local or supporting local, and 3, the concept of follow her lead. When looking at the concept of voice, we all know that women's rights are humans' rights. It's as simple as that. Yet in Namibia and in the world at large, we still have a long way to go to recognize women's full humanity, despite the evidence that shows that when women thrive, everyone thrives. Data has shown that having more women in decision-making roles positively impacts development outcomes, and in business, it positively impacts the bottom line. There's data to prove this. The handling of the COVID-19 pandemic at a national level is a case in point. All we have to do is to look at women-led countries to see how some of the differences have been in terms of well-considered responses to the pandemic. In looking at the recovery phase and what should be a better normal then, and what should be a better normal than the pre-COVID and the current normal, there's no doubt that women's voices and essentially a diversity of voices are key to doing better. We all witnessed the power of the Shut It All Down movement last year in bringing added attention to gender-based violence at a time when such attention was needed. And so those voices were critical to responding to that crisis, but also creating a better normal, making sure that gender-based violence isn't such a stark reality in the Namibian reality. Their actions and recommendations are now being used in impacting government policy making. So it shows that those diverse voices make a difference. Likewise, it is vital that a diversity of voices are heard in the ongoing recovery efforts and its unique impact on everyone. The current status quo, where we have only 20% of women in executive decision-making in Namibia, or where more than 85% of Namibian boards are male-dominated, is not really sustainable. These are things that need to be destructured, as Hayes said. It's not sustainable for one's bottom line, and it's not sustainable for a Namibia where all of us can thrive. So let's hear these voices and make them more included. In relation to supporting local, we all know that local businesses have taken a beating from the pandemic. SMEs, who are the lifeline of any economy, have especially been impacted, and their ability to emerge strong is going to be key to a strong recovery for our country and for countries around the world. Case has outlined the impact on, or somewhat outlined the impact on the tourism industry and on Gondwana. Looking at the number of job losses that the tourism industry has had, there are many lessons that we can take from the Gondwana example, where everyone had to scale down to make sure that they could support each other. But going back to the idea of supporting local, the loss of jobs and the closure of businesses is still difficult to comprehend. Reports show that 20,000 job losses, there were 100,000 job losses in 2020, when we've already been battling a very high unemployment rate of over 30%. We're talking about lives and we're talking about livelihoods here. So these are really bread and butter issues when we're talking around job losses and supporting the local economy. This is especially so for women who are disproportionately affected by unemployment and also disproportionately represented in informal employment and in vulnerable employment. When we're talking about supporting local, I'm not just talking about buying Namibian on the shelves, but also looking to support informal sector entrepreneurs, buying food at the local fruit stalls that you see located around Windhoek, or making sure that wherever possible you can retain a domestic worker. Whatever that case may be, these are really things that impact people's lives and that change the idea of how we see a better normal. I want to go to the third concept, and this will also touch on the support local component, because when we're supporting local, we're really investing in the local economy for a better recovery also. Back in 2018, Leading Edge, where I'm a principal consultant, embarked on a project called Follow Her Lead. It resulted in the publication of a book that highlights the context of women's leadership in Namibia and showcases exceptional Namibian women leaders. We published the book because we had grown tired of the narrative that capable women can't be found when it comes to selecting women for decision-making roles, especially at board level. And we wanted to showcase that brilliant Namibian women do exist, and they exist to inspire everyone, not just women. And these are women whose leads we all can follow. One of the women that we featured in the first edition is Mariana Kwenye, the owner of Nomad Spa. I want to highlight Mariana Kwenye because her response to the COVID pandemic and what it's meant for business highlights the resilience that we all can showcase. Marianne works in the wellness industry, so her business was directly impacted by the pandemic. As she told me in conversation, in the new normal, you can't touch people. That was what was stated. And so the potential negative impact on Marianne's business was profound. But she chose to innovate and she chose to adapt. And she totally flipped the script on the COVID narrative. She and her team did this by focusing on their product line, Makai Apothecary. And not only focusing on that product line, but making sure that it responded to what the need was. Specifically, they created a eucalyptus steamer with the healing effects of nature. Inspired by the wisdom of Namibian healthcare rituals, the steamer is non-toxic, it's an antioxidant, it's a natural decongestant, and it's perfectly concentrated in a little cube that you simply pop in hot water and you use it for steaming, which of course has been advised for, making sure that you can deal with sickness or prevent getting sick. So it essentially responded to the times. Innovating in this way was key for Nomad, because it was key to Nomad surviving the worst of this crisis. And this was especially important for Marianne, because the spa trains and employs blind women who, because of their disability, are even more vulnerable. So these women have been trained to conduct massage, and they're looking at doing more training to do things like breast cancer screening or touch therapy and so forth. So protecting those jobs was key. So Marianne's story is a glowing example of the personal agency involved in creating a better normal in the workplace while adapting to the certainty of change. And we're going to see many more changes in our lifetime. As Kay said, for example, things are going digital. There's going to be more change. It's inevitable. Marianne's success, like that of many other female and male entrepreneurs, literally depends on all of us, individuals, private sector, and the public sector, buying local. Marianne is here today, by the way, so, maybe she can speak to that again later. There are many more amazing examples of women leading resiliently in times of crisis, women looking for new opportunities to thrive, securing jobs of their employees, or creating new employment. There are many of these women here today. I see Claudette Nahum, for example, who even through a crisis in the construction industry has been able to maintain jobs. To keep those jobs, people aren't necessarily getting raises, but their livelihoods are being secured. And this is coming off of construction industry, economic headwinds, and the COVID-19 pandemic. That's a woman whose resilience we can look to. I see Maria Huilepo in the audience, a pilot whose work has also been impacted by the pandemic, but who has fallen back on her skills. She's an IT graduate, she's an international model, she's establishing her personal brand. These are women that are looking to different opportunities to be resilient in this sort of pandemic. So these women all set a lead that we all can follow, and in learning how to adapt to crises. At Leading Edge, we're taking the Follow Her Lead project into the virtual space also. We had planned to publish last year. COVID-19 was a bit rocky for us, but we're looking at going into the virtual space this year. And we're going to use this platform not only to provide insight and inspiration and resources on women's advancement, but also to enable corporates to assess their own progress when it comes to creating a more inclusive, gender inclusive and generally diversity inclusive and a better normal in the workplace in the post-COVID era. So I'll close by saying that we all have a role to play in ensuring that the certainty of change brings about a better normal, that it brings about better outcomes. We all have a personal stake and we all have a collective interest and responsibility in not only recovering from this current crisis, but guaranteeing that our post-COVID reality will be far better than our current reality. So when we talk about adapting in the post-COVID era, let's focus on creating a better normal. Thank you.
Journeying together towards a better world for all. No matter what, we are here with you every single step of the way, because yours is a relationship worth banking on. Bank Windhoek, a member of Capricorn Group.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. But first, I would like to thank Capricorn Group for creating this platform and for inviting me to be able to participate in this inspiring conversation. Nangula and Gys, I'm very humbled to share the stage with you, and thank you for those inspiring thoughts and views that you just shared. Now, what is that I'm going to unpack today? Of course, we do know that the main topic is adapting to the new post-COVID-19 era. But in unpacking that, as a transformational coach and having dealt with a number of clients, those who may have lost their job and those who did very well during the pandemic period, I developed a concept called HOPE, H-O-P. And I just felt that concept, I would share that concept with you today and all our audience who are following online. But before I unpack that concept, I also wanted to start with what we were taught by Simon Sinek when he said, always start with a why. And if we have to start with a why this morning, our why will be, why do we have to adapt to the new post-COVID-19 era? Why do we have to adapt? And the answer to our why for the purpose of today's session can be found in the teaching of Charles Darwin, one of the greatest philosophers, when he once argued and submitted that it's not the strongest of species that survive. It's not the most intelligent species that survive, but the one that is more adaptable to change. And therefore, if we are not adapting then deliberately, what is the danger there? We may not survive. And Max McKeown goes further to argue and say, it's not just sufficient to adapt to cope. There are always two approaches in adapting. One is that of adapting to cope, and the other one is that of adapting to win. Now, the choice is yours. Do you want to adapt to the new normal just to cope and survive? Or do you want to win? I leave that with you for the time being. Now, one thing that we need to understand is that life and business is like a season. And I want to repeat that again. Life and business is like a season. And what happened to seasons? Seasons change. You will have your winters, and you will have your spring, and you will have your summer. Over 6,000 years, over the past 6,000 years, that has been the case. You will have darkness, and you will have daylight. Sometime you will get sick, and you will get well. You will have crisis, and there will be a time of prosperity. Why am I sharing you with this background? It's because for us then to have hope and confidence, knowing that whatever we are currently going through, it's a temporary situation which will not last forever. Are we together? Whatever we are experiencing now is a situation that gives us an opportunity to grow, to develop and grow. Let me briefly then unpack for you the concept that I developed last year, toward the end of last year, called hope. Those of you who have followed my transformational speaking engagement, I like putting words together. Any words that you can give me or a name, I can unpack it into an inspirational talk. ABC of Sam Shivute, we talk about attitude, we talk about believing in choices or confidence. That's how I unpack it. And towards the end of the year, I developed this motivational concept called hope. And what inspired or pushed me to come up with concept on hope is because there is also some perception, and just like those who follow us on Twitter, one of the Namibian influencer 3 days ago tweeted and said, there seems to be a shortage of optimism among our people. Sometimes we experience, when you look into at the social media posting, there's a lot of negativity and pessimistics, and just people kind of like losing hope. And when you then see that situation where people are kind of like getting into negative space and not really talking about how the future is likely to be better and brighter, then the future of those people could be doomed. Very well knowing that when you have negative thought will never produce positive results. Let's move briefly to unpack for you then this concept of hope. I will start with the letter H. And the letter H of this concept of hope represents health. Yes, we're talking about adapting to post-COVID-19 era, to adapt to the new normal. But as we are adapting, we need to take care of our health. Because what is the use? You adapt, you are excited about a better future, and you are not in a health condition, you are not able to enjoy your good health, then it doesn't make any sense. But when we are talking about unpacking the concept of health, I always like to share the definition of health, the word health, from the World Health Organization. And they define health as a state of complete physical, emotional, and social well-being, and not just a mere absence of diseases and infirmity. So when you talk about health that you need to take care of for you to positively adapt, you got to focus on emotional well-being, physical well-being, and also social well-being. And therefore, if we are to briefly start with emotional well-being, you need to ask yourself, what am I doing to keep my mind intact, to ensure that my mental health is well taken care of? Because there are some people who do not have any disease or any infirmity, but they are sick. And therefore, what are you going to do? How are you going to stay in a positive space? What type of books are you going to read? What type of conversation are you not going to allow? The toxic conversation and negativity. Make sure you take care of your mental health. With physical health, this one, it's about doing. You have to exercise. Today already 4 o'clock, and I do that every day, Monday to Saturday. 4 o'clock I have to go up, to be up with a group of a number of professionals exercising, because not only is it important to take care of our mental health for us to adapt, but we need to take care of our physical health. Exercise, run, and you don't need a gym, you can do it anywhere. The social well-being, how are you making sure that social well-being, you're fine? Are you keeping in touch with the people that you're supposed to keep in touch with? Mother Teresa once said that we need to make time for one another. We may not be meeting. How many people have you called who are in the hospital suffering from COVID, for example, and just to call them to give them hope? So the first letter is about hope. The second letter, the first letter on hope is it's health. The second one, it's opportunities. Again, just like he says as well that there are a lot of opportunity and we must never lose this good crisis. Now, the Chinese and Japanese, in their vocabulary, they do not have a word crisis. Wherever the word crisis represents opportunity. You need to ask yourself, what opportunity are you going to seek and to try to grab during this crisis or during this pandemic? And remember, opportunity will never come to you and say, I'm an opportunity, please grab me. You got to be actively seeking for those opportunities. You got to multi-skill. Nangula spoke about the story of Mariana Kwenye and Maria Hiulepo. I had an opportunity to share a stage at a night of inspiration with Mariana Hiulepo because his story, Mariana Kwenye, because his story is so inspiring. A top pilot with many hours of flying, but still decided she's going to do something completely different from that. And as a result of that multi-skilling and be able to seek for different opportunity, now, whilst other pilots are not able to fly, she's still having a business running. Do you understand? Maria Hiulepo, again, a top pilot, helicopter pilot as well, an IT specialist. And when she was not able to fly during the COVID lockdown, she was able to do the other work as well, including modeling and all those things. Do you understand? So multi-skills, look for opportunity. Let's briefly move to, before we move to P and I conclude with E, I just wanted to give a practical example as well about this thing about seeing opportunity and focusing on what can you become during any crisis that you are presented with. 5 years ago, the Be Unlimited brand, we established the Be Unlimited Book Club. And our vision was always to make this global. And initially when we started with this Be Unlimited Book Club, we were only based in Windhoek. And we meet at our office in Auspanplatz on a monthly basis. We pick a book that have a power and the ability to transform our mind positively. But the vision was always, how do we make this brand global? So we were only meeting in Windhoek and only able to serve Windhoek-based clients. Then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we have to cover the expenses, we have to pay the salary, and we still need to meet. But COVID regulations say we cannot meet in the office. What happened? We knew about the existence of Zoom. We knew about the existence of Microsoft Teams and so on. We never used it. But when we used that, before we know it, our clientele base is now based in UK, Washington, South Sudan, India, Japan, where our representative for Japan just came back, and we can serve the entire region in Namibia. That is how you see opportunity out of crisis, and we can only be grateful to the Almighty because of that. The P is about planning. All the institutions that we work for, they have their strategic plan. Namibia, they have the National Development Program. Then, of course, the African Union, they have the Agenda 2030. The world, or UN, they have UN Sustainable Development Goals. Do you have a plan? Is your plan written? Are you working toward achieving your plan? but also for you to have a plan. Develop a deep sense of self-awareness. As a transformational coach, before I start working with a client, I force you and I work with you to develop a deep sense of self-awareness. Because if you don't work on mastering who you are, how will you know about your other abilities of other works that you can do that can help you during a crisis like this? Do you get? So first you got to know yourself and know what you like and what you don't like. That's a P, plan. But that plan, you have to work on it. Just like you work hard to achieve the strategic objective of your company, you got to work more on you, more than you work even on your job. Then the E is about execution. Sometimes we have this beautiful plan, like we talk about this plan. You have the plan of achieving your health. You have the plan of deliberately seeking for these opportunities. But sometimes we do not execute. You are not going to be judged about what you promised to start. You are not going to be judged about how beautiful your plan was. You are not going to be judged just because you existed. People will be interested about what significant impact did you make? What did you do? How did you show up? Have you been of service to any other person? Have you been of service to humanity or other people? Did you execute? Ask yourself on a weekly basis. When I speak with my colleagues at work, sometimes I tell them, say, every Friday, or at the end of each and every day, ask yourself, what did I do today? What impact does that have on me, on my employer, and on society? Execution, execution, execution is key. Just before I conclude, again, the question is, why should we adapt? We adapt for us not only to cope, but we want to win. It's not enough just to adapt and to be able to deal with the new normal while you have not taken good care of your health. There are many wonderful opportunities during any crisis, but those opportunities will not come to you and say, please grab me, I'm an opportunity. You need to be deliberate, you need to be aggressive, you need to be active and see how you can grab those opportunities. You must have a plan, and your plan is not worth of anything if you are not executing. And just remember, work on strengthening your mindset to be positive, to know that the better future is coming, to know that this situation is temporary, and just know that we are unlimited being, limited only by the concept of limitation that we place on our mind. Be unlimited, be inspired. Thank you very much. Thank
you. Let's take a walk together through precious milestones lined with fear and uncertainty. You learned, you bonded, celebrating life's little victories whenever they came along. You practiced over and over and over again, pursuing perfection, persevering through hardships, never losing sight of your vision, your dream of a better world, building relationships for happily ever after, shaping a brighter future for all together. No matter your journey, we are here with you every single step of the way, because yours is a relationship worth banking on. Journeying together to see practice make perfect. No matter what, we are here with you every single step of the way, because yours is a relationship worth banking on. Bank Windhoek, a member of Capricorn Group.
Thank you so much for still tuning in. We are so excited. We see that some comments have come through on our social media platforms. And once again, you are tuned in to Inspire. And we're excited. We have Gys Joubert with us in the studio. We have Nangula as well as Sam. Thank you so much for those talks. It was so inspiring. Exactly what we need for this time. So I'll start off with a few questions. Gys, I'll start with you. There's a question that has come in that says, you mentioned that things are changing and moving to digital. How do you imagine the change specifically affecting the tourism industry as a whole and then Gondwana itself?
So I think first and foremost, the way that that the globe interacts with your brand. You know, tourism specifically, we've had a long value chain in terms of you know, travel agents, wholesalers, incoming agents, and then the service provider. And nowadays, with the internet, people can find you directly, and they interact with your brand directly on all these platforms where we are live now, on an app, on all those things. So, and that is becoming very, very important. That you are there, that you are available, you know, for people to interact and to understand and to get to know you in a user-friendly way in terms of your digital presence.
Of course. I know we didn't go you know, in so much detail on digital transformation, but Nangula, maybe you can also chip in here as to how does digital play a role in adaptation as a whole, maybe some examples that you can provide.
I mean, I think the COVID pandemic presents a classic example of how it does play a role. Sam spoke to the Be Unlimited brand and how with the book club they've gone digital and really transformed the business in that sense by having a more global audience and by being able to benefit from that global audience also. In the work that we've done as well, we've definitely had to, we've almost in a way been forced to look at that digital space because that's where people are interacting right now. You know, at the moment, in our current reality, we can only have a studio audience of 20 people, for example, but outside of this audience, there are hundreds that are tuned in. And so the digital space is transforming the way that we engage with each other. It's transforming the way business looks. It's transforming the way people in the tourism industry, you know, book a ticket, book an excursion, you know, interact with the people that they're going to be seeing and so forth. So I think it's definitely playing a huge role. I think we've seen a lot of this digital transformation already coming. If you look at, you know, businesses like Airbnb, for example, that have taken a huge hit because of the current pandemic, but that had been online and changed the space of how people book locations and so forth. It's clear that digital transformation is inevitable. It's something that we need to be looking to, while at the same time preserving that human connection that both the gentlemen spoke about.
Of course. Thank you so much, Nangula and Gys. I'll go over to Sam Shivute. Sam, there's a question here that says, what opportunities are available to people who have multi-skill and have to adjust to the new normal? It's easy to say people need to look for opportunities, but how does this work for individuals with limited access to resources and support?
Okay, thank you, Grace. And again, the world, there are always multitude of opportunities. But for one to be in a position then to get this opportunity, one need to be seeking and to be very deliberate about seeking this opportunity. But I will not be able to tell you that, okay, there is this specific opportunity. What will need to happen, and what I always encourage people, like I said, you got to develop a deep sense of self-awareness. When you then develop a deep sense of self-awareness and you do what is called your SWOT analysis, then you understand what are you passionate about, what are you good at, who is your connection, what else can you do. Out of that then, but also the best way sometime of looking for opportunity that are around. I want to take you back to the definition of a business. The business is nothing other than just solving societal challenges of problems. You need to look as to what is that, which is, what problems are we facing? What are the 10 most challenges facing humanity? They are documented, they are online, they are everywhere. People will need food. People will need transport, people will need technology. So you need to look, what are the challenges facing humanity? What are the challenges facing the area in which I am? And out of that, now that you know who you are and what you can do, whom you can connect with, then you will then say, okay, this is the area where I could find an opportunity. You cannot prescribe to people, say, oh, there is an opportunity that people end up copying what other people are doing. There must also be passion, or there where you think you are good at.
Thank you so much, Sam. I can see that you are really a motivational coach. That was fantastic. I'll still stick to that topic a little bit. We'll dwell on it a little bit more and talk about the gig economy. I'll throw this question over to Nangula. And you shared some examples, I believe, of Maria, who had other, roles or other careers that she could go into. How does the gig economy look like right now? Is that the direction we should be going? Would you advise people to have more trades? Back in the day, they used to say jack of all trades, master of none. But it looks like now it's the other way around. What would you say about that?
Well, I think Sam presented a good point when he said one needs to plan and to understand where your passions lie, what you're good at, what problems you're able to solve. And, I think the gig economy does present a lot of scope, especially with things going online. There's a lot of scope for people to benefit. But I think we need to understand also where our talents lie and then to make sure that we hone those talents, hone those skills, and then make it work for ourselves. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily in the gig economy, but in a way, as a consultant, you're always sort of looking for new projects, new jobs based on what a client requires. And in that sense, I've at Leading Edge worked on several different projects, but also had the flexibility of, not even being based in Namibia. I live between two countries right now. So being able to work from Benin or from Namibia, but to engage online and so forth. So I think that online engagement creates a lot of space for that gig economy. But I think it's really around planning and understanding what are the issues that you're solving, and then jumping into it and executing. Yeah.
Cool. Sam, I see you'd like to say something. Are you fine?
No, I think
okay. Gys, I'm still dwelling on that a little bit, and I'm going to go over to maybe specifically companies and diversifying. How does that or did that look like in Gondwana's space? And can you give us some, practical examples of what Gondwana has done?
So I think it started quite a while back already, and it goes back to Sam's quote of Darwin, in terms of agility. You have to be agile and constantly challenging yourself in terms of your status quo. That cliche that it's so dangerous, success is so dangerous. If you're on top of your game, change your game. So what we've done in terms of tourism, in terms of Gondwana, is to, we've looked at the whole tourism value chain. And we're going to start it as an accommodation service provider. We've done so much more. Today we do consulting, we do tour planning, we do, we do car rental. So we've become more in one industry, and who knows, maybe even sometimes go beyond the industry, because ultimately it's about the brand. It's about what we stand for. It's about the trust that's out there, and that presents an opportunity in itself.
Of course. Thank you. We still have a few more questions to go. Sam, this is more on the emotional intelligence side. There's a viewer that has asked, with employees being impacted with illnesses and, possibly deaths in their family, how do you encourage them to still have hope?
Okay. Thank you, Grace, and I really like that question. If there is one thing that we must never lose of, is we cannot afford to lose hope. And without inspiration and motivation, we will not be able to achieve that which we want. First thing that we need to understand is that adversity is bound to happen to all of us in one way or the other. But when adversity then happen or strike, we must always have a choice either to be bitter or to be better. I always encourage my clients to choose to be better, because if you choose to be bitter, you may even also get sick and die. But let me give a classical example of why we must never lose hope. I think many people, I don't know whether many people here will remember the story of Dr. Viktor Frankl. Dr. Viktor Frankl was a German, an Austrian psychologist, and psychiatrist. And this guy in 1942, I want to give that classic example. 1942, this guy got arrested in the Nazi camp. His wife got killed, his brother got killed, his father got lost, and his son got killed. And this concentration camp where he was, people were being tortured, you are not eating what you want. It was horrible, and a lot of people were committing suicide. And he made a tough decision. And remember, as human beings, we have this choice of making taking a choice or making a decision about the attitude we want to approach. Instead of him losing hope, can you imagine? Some people are committing suicide because all the people around them are being killed and tortured and so on. But Dr. Franklin decided that he chose hope, and he decided that, look, I am going to focus on finding a meaning. I'm going to find, even though physically I'm in this jail, mentally I will not be out. As a result of that, he then decided, every time when he see people being tortured and so on, he see himself on a stage teaching people about logotherapy. Logotherapy is an approach or method which you can follow to find meaning and purpose in your life. And as a result of that, he developed that, and every time, for the 3 years that he spent in that concentration camp, mentally he was already seeing himself in the stage. He even already wrote his book, Men's Search for Meaning. His manuscript was confiscated and taken, but because he wrote it in his mind before he committed to paper, at the end of the day, of course, in 1945, he was rescued, and he went on to find that school, logotherapy, and even made more money and become more significant than us. So we cannot afford to lose hope, because if we lose hope, then our future will be doomed. But you need always to find something to do. That's why there's a concept called, especially people who have lost their job, there is a concept called, it's a kind of depression, it is a type of a depression called unemployment neurosis. And with unemployment neurosis, what happens is that you will find some people who equate being unemployed with being useless. And others will then equate uselessness equating to being meaningless in life. Now, what then had happened is that there was a study of unemployed youth, for example. They were divided into two groups. One group continued to be having that, not having hope, and they fell into drugs and addiction and all those bad things. And another group was persuaded to say that, find something to do. Wake up at a specific time and go and volunteer your time at a youth organization, adult education, something to do that is meaningful, that is aligned to your passion. The result of that experiment, it came out that those who chose to find something meaningful to do, even though they were not being paid, they recovered from unemployment neurosis. But even though their economic situation did not change, but those who did not try to find any meaning and they were just having self-pity, they remained there. Some of them committed suicide. So hope, we have to choose hope. There is no choice.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Sam. That was well explained. I think it also speaks to this comment that says, this question that says, how do I move from a mindset of loss to one of hope? So thank you so much. That was addressed. I'll move over to Nangula. And Nangula, this is a very interesting question. It says, would you say that the COVID-19 crisis has advanced or delayed the move towards gender equality and women's rights? And I guess I can also put in a little bit of my comment in there, just to say, just for example, you know, working from home and you know, whether kids are staying at home, it's most often the women that have to either sacrifice something in their career to be able to take care of a household during a time like this. Do you think that it has delayed you know, gender equality in the workplace?
It definitely has delayed gender equality, and there's data to show that. UN Women has put out some data around that. I don't know the specific stats, but we know for sure that it has delayed things. But I think at the same time, while there has been that delay, as we're looking at the idea, as I spoke earlier about the better normal, those are things that hopefully we'll be paying more attention to as we move beyond the pandemic. I think the whole world, especially in looking as Sam said, at the SDGs, Agenda 2030, and at AU's Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, we're all in when it comes to gender equality. Or we say that we're all in when it comes to gender equality. I think what's going to be required now is action to make sure that that comes to the fore and that comes to fruition. I think, you know, while it has been delayed, there are also opportunities that have been highlighted. So, for example, you know, pre-COVID, for women who were looking for more flexibility in the workplace, it was always brought up as an issue. No, you can't work from home, productivity this, productivity that. But with the pandemic and people working from home and still having to deliver, it's shown that it is possible. And so I think looking at, you know, structures of flexibility, looking at how we allow employees to be free, as Gys said, you know, is going to be important, and it's going to be part of that narrative moving forward. And hopefully that will be part of the narrative then also when we look at how we deconstruct some of the traditional or cultural beliefs around what the woman's role is supposed to be, and look at how we create spaces where everyone can thrive, where women can thrive in their homes and at work, and where men can thrive too, at home and at work.
Lovely. You mentioned something that Gys said, you know, positivity and being happy at work. Gys, I would like to ask a question. It says, you know, where companies are trying to save costs and cut processes, how do you still remain sensitive to the needs of employees? How do you balance that out?
It is very, very difficult. It really is. You know, we are in the service industry, so by far our biggest expense that's left is the payroll. I think the big part there is, and it goes back to what Sam said, it's about solidarity. It's about the you know, it's about the individual. It's about the sensitivity about the individual. So we do it together. We don't do it to each other, we do it with each other. But it is difficult. It is difficult. There's economic reality out there. You know, people have financial responsibilities. So it's easier said than done. But we have hope, and that this too shall pass. So.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our question and answer session. What I would like just to ask is for each of you to just say a final comment before we close off. Sam, maybe I can start with you.
Okay. Thank you, Grace. I think in my concluding remarks, I just want to share this concept of multi-potentiality. Sometimes with my coaching client, I like to share it with them, because sometimes you will find people saying that you must only, if you are good at something, just be focusing on that. Don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Sometimes that concept is not always true, because there are people, I belong to the group of people called multi-potentiality. I find passion in different things, and if I have to share some of the things that I'm passionate I do, it's not because I want to impress anybody, but I want to impress upon people that don't be unlimited by society's notions that you must only be focusing on one thing. For example, I'm a security professional by training. I did law at school, and one of my expertise is the money, production and design of money, the banknote. Then now I'm in a tax environment. I do training and transformational coaching, and I'm also in a taxation space, and I'm also a master of time management. So I don't want people to be limited. And just to conclude, like Lester Revenson, the author of a Sedona method, he is the one who told us the quote that I ended with. I want to encourage people really to read Mind Power by John Cahill, so that you master your mind and how you can make things happen with your mind. I would also want people really to believe in the concept of a Sedona method, so that we know that, like Lester Levinson say, we are unlimited beings, limited only by the concept of limitation that we place in our minds. So be inspired, but most importantly, be unlimited.
Thank you. Nangula, any final words?
Oh, wow, after Sam, I'm just like, that wraps it up. Well, I think as everyone has, as Gys and as Sam have said, I think the opportunities are there for us to take hold of. I think that we should be looking towards creating something better than what we've had in the past. Not only looking at 2020 and COVID, but even before that, you know, not only with regards to gender or with regards to gender-based violence or, you know, those sorts of things, but really about coming to the fore and speaking to our potential and doing what we can do to really, well, as Sam says, to be unlimited. So I think these are all things that we can look forward to. I think it's important, especially in this time, because we aren't really beyond COVID yet, but to also be kind. You know, I think everyone is going through something with the COVID pandemic, whether it's loss or of life, loss of jobs, you know, loss in many different ways. But I think it's just important to make sure that we remain kind, but also that we remain hopeful.
Thank you, Nangula. And of course, last but not least, he started us off, so he's going to end us off. Gys, any final words?
Grace, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really humbled, you know, to have shared the stage with these two. I'm completely inspired. So thank you for that, and thank you to the Capricorn Group. You know, I love that concept of connectors of positive change. We live in a small country with some big challenges, but if we all can be that, we have a very hopeful future.
No, thank you very much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, lovely viewers, that was Gys, Nangula, and Sam. Thank you so much for tuning in. And our in-studio audience, you were just lovely. So until next time, keep a lookout for another Inspire session from us at Capricorn Group. It's goodbye until next time.